Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special presentation brought to you by the State of Quake.
We're proud to announce a new series that's going to be focused on interviews called In the Keep, hosted by the motherlode of Cathala's Keep.
He's been a great ally within the Quake community and has done a lot for us personally, so we think you'll enjoy these episodes.
So without further ado, here's the first episode of In the Keep.
I'm the motherlode for the people who end up listening to this. Violentheart, what's up?
Hello, how's it going?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
All right, I am currently a software engineer for a large online mortgage company. I've played Quake since Q-Test, I guess, since I was a little kid, and have been playing Quake Quake Champions competitively at the amateur level. I've done pretty well by my standards in a bunch of tournaments, and have really tried to follow the game as it's grown and grind it with all the new metas and all that good stuff.
Cool. I guess the first question I really wanted to ask you is what was the first video game that you ever played?
Oh, that's easy. It was Duck Hunt.
Oh shit!
Duck
yeah.
Hunt. Yeah, I remember that really well. I was gonna say I had like one of the messed up zapper guns. I had to get a replacement or something, and when my replacement came in, it was half gray and half red, like they'd messed up or someone had done something to it. So I remember that really well, and it wasn't too long after that I was able to understand Super Mario and play it.
It's hilarious. You're a full generation older than me, but I can say I had the exact same experience. I grew up where I grew up. We're just behind. It's a whole decade behind in the Southeast sometimes for technology and things like that. So yeah, I grew up on the Super Nintendo NES. I still have my dad's NES. It's right over there.
Oh man, that's great. I actually ended up giving away my my NES and my Super NES to a family, and that was 6-7 years ago. And those kids, even though they're in high school now, they still play both of them. So.
I think you told me that. Yeah, you donated it to a less fortunate family. What a charitable man this is.
Right? It was a sad day. There were some tears, I ain't gonna lie.
How did you come to Quake? What brought you to that?
Oh man, so my dad is kind of a nerdy guy. He is the reason I got into computer programming and have the profession I have to begin with. He was always kind of on the cutting edge, buying whatever came out, and we discovered the Doom shareware a little bit late. I think it was 8 or 9 months after it came out, so we were behind the curve on that. But we ended up buying the full version. Then Doom 2 came out not too long after that, and we were just hooked. And we were actually playing tennis and doing a lot of bowling at that time. And one of his buddies that did both of those with us gave us a floppy or some floppies that had Q-Test on it. And he's like, "Hey man, check this out." And that was the same guy that had given us the Doom shareware to begin with. So we went home and ran that thing on our 486 and saw that turtle icon, and he instantly upgraded, and the rest was history. We played a little bit of Q-Test over serial cable. Terrible transfer rate for data, but low latency. So I guess you could say I started playing Quake multiplayer back before I even knew it was a thing.
What was the internet like? Dial-up?
Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, at that time, yeah, we had AOL. So yeah, it was pretty bad.
See, let's see. You were playing Quake 4. That came out in what, 2005? Right?
Yeah, that came out in, I think, August or September of 2005, maybe October.
I didn't know high-speed internet existed until 2005. The first time I ever saw YouTube streaming was in 2005. Didn't know it existed. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was 2001 before I got cable internet, and I'd already kind of stopped playing Quake 3 because I played Quake 2 and Quake 3 competitively online, little for fun tournaments. Ogle Online Gaming League was a big one for those that remember that, Liga.net, and ended up playing basketball and doing a lot of bowling really seriously. So that ate into all my time along with school and friends and all that stuff. So I stopped playing Quake by the time I got super low ping, and it was kind of a shame because I'd always wanted to have like 30 ping, like Machiavelli and Immortal, and all the K9 guys had on those West Coast servers when I was growing up in Quake 2.
And you grew up in Colorado or move around?
No, I'm like almost a stone's throw from the border. I think if you hop in the car and head south for not even 5 minutes, you're in Colorado. Where I'm at right now, I'm in Wyoming.
Oh,
Yeehaw.
okay. Cool. What part? Like Cheyenne area over by the
Cheyenne. Yeah, I'm in
the
Cheyenne.
missile complexes and stuff all around you, dude. That's scary.
Yeah, they're north of me. I'm on the south side of Cheyenne, but yeah, they
No,
are.
I have a perfect geographical map in my head of where all that is. It's scary. So, did you see what was that Quentin Tarantino movie, Hateful Eight, about Wyoming? Is
No,
it like that?
I have it on Blu-ray. I haven't watched it yet. It's sitting wrapped with a bunch of other movies that I haven't gotten watched thanks to games like Quake.
This is going to be super tangential. I don't have I have a very loose layout of what kind of things I want to talk about questions wise. So feel free. This doesn't have to be 100% Quake. You can talk about whatever you want. Dude, I'm going to smoke the whole time.
All right.
I don't give a shit. This is not professional. This is us having a good conversation. So
hey man, I'm just chilling too. No, I mean I've been around this area my whole life, so we were pretty late getting a lot of technology stuff. So sometimes my dad, we'd have to actually like drive to Denver, drive to wherever to find some computer components that weren't like super marked up. You know, they could actually see without having to order them online, without knowing what you're getting back in those days. And I mean, he always hooked me up with whatever he could so I could play some Quake and compete in the little events that I did. But I was also kind of a shit, so I often got my machines taken away from me when I wasn't behaving in school or whatever.
It's really fortunate for you though that you grew up with a parent who wanted to support that. You know, like a lot of people would be like, my parents thought I was a loser. I could never play video games, that kind of thing. Which wasn't really the case. After maybe the past 20 years, like most of our parents played at least, arcade games or the Nintendo or something. But yeah, there's definitely a shift.
Yeah, my folks, they were gamers back then. So like my mom took me to buy a Switch the first night it was out. And as a result, I still like pick up all the new Mario games and everything, like pre-order them. So they just kind of show up on her door. So she still plays all that stuff. But man, I've always had their support. And like my dad at that time, my parents split up. So I was splitting time between two houses, and he made it so I had two machines at both places that could run Quake and all this stuff. And one of them was a little on the janky side, so if I had like any TDM matches I had to play, I had to go back to my other house that got a little more frames per second, so I could actually help my team.
So was there a lot of like parental jealousy or anything about like, hey, he's spending more time at your house? Like, no, he's just on the computer.
Oh man, I was like, when I wasn't playing sports or anything, I was always on the computer, and it was always, I spent the week at my mom's and the weekend at my dad's, and my dad was always on his computer playing Quake and Quake 2 with me. Just, he played single player and I played the multiplayer. It was a good time.
What was the transition like? I can't even imagine, because I was a child, but from like Doom 1 to Doom 2 to Quake 1, like how did that transition go for people playing? Can you explain it to me? Can you break that down for me?
Well, so the single player, I mean, playing Doom, I was a keyboarder. I didn't use the mouse. So
right.
Point and click anything. Then Quake came out, and that kind of changed. It was like, whoa. I played Q-Test, I think, the first day with just straight up keyboard, and I was like, man, this doesn't work. Like when he goes up that lift and he shoots at me, I can't aim upwards at him without like having to crane my head like real slowly, Yeah. So the second day of Q-Test, I switched to the mouse, and that was actually at my cousin's insistence because he was already using mouse and keyboard for Doom, and the rest was history. I loved it. I was able to aim a lot better, and my dad didn't want to play multiplayer Quake with me anymore.
What was it like having 3-dimensional shooting? Because I know that you enter +M look on Quake 1, and then all of a sudden you can look up and down and everything, especially coming from a time before that when it was just side to side only.
Dude, it was really cool. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I ran around a map by myself before I tried it, like playing with anyone over the network. And I honestly just spent a lot of time looking at the sky and the skybox because that stuff was really cool. But just having that freedom, man, it was just something else. Like that was probably one of the most fond memories I had as a kid, and it was a game. That feeling of like, whoa, this is another dimension, and I can actually like do whatever I want in it.
Yeah, I don't even understand it. Like I had to go back and try to like, okay, this is the history of these games. Like I played Quake 3 in high school. Like this guy just brought it in to our business tech class because our teacher was not really present. So we just set it up on the LAN, played some Quake 3 Arena, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about strafe jumping. No one in the classroom knew anything about that. It was just like, look at this cool game that's old that we're just gonna dick around and play. And I don't know, I just fell in love with that. Like I don't know why. I just that game, like playing. I want to say we were playing on The Longest Yard, or what was the original name of it? Like
The Longest Yard, yeah.
yeah. So we were just playing on that map, like deathmatch, like 20 people in a classroom. There must have been maybe 8 of us playing actually. And there was this one dude called Skittle Dick, and I guess he knew what he was doing. I never figured out what guy in the class was Skittle Dick. Like we were looking at each other's screens, so he's just like running us over, and we're like, how could anyone be this much better when we all just picked up this game? And
Yeah.
it just started the addiction for me. But I didn't really touch it after that. It took me until I grew up a bit to like Quake Champions came out. I did play Quake 3 with friends like that were in that classroom. Like I'm still friends with them, and I'm like, hey, let's buy Quake 3. Like we had fun doing that, and let's just dick around and shoot each other. But again, I didn't have no connection to the outside world of like, this is how you strafe jump. This is how you like set up your key bindings and everything. So we're just scroll wheeling the shit out of each other. And then we go into servers. I think we ran into Fatality one night. I'm not sure if he still actually does hang out. Because anyone can change their name.
Yep.
So he like whoever this person is murking us, and then I messaged him. I'm like, dude, you're not the real Fatality. Come on, stop running around with that name. And he's like, I really am. So, and I was just like, well, message back like, look, if you are the real Fatality, I'm a huge fan, and I love you, and thank you for hanging out with us. But if you're not, go fuck yourself, man.
Oh yeah, dude, it is most likely someone else.
Yeah,
when
of course.
When I was on tour and I played online, actually, I had really stylish name, like because you could do fancy things with characters in older Quakes and Doom
Colors,
games.
yeah.
Yep, and some of them had like little like character sets of icons and stuff you could do. And some people would spoof my name, like play in a pub as me.
Yeah.
So nah, it's probably someone else, man.
That's what I figured too. Is like anybody who has any kind of Quake knowledge could destroy all of us and make us think they're a pro. At this point in time, this is a couple of years ago, probably. But at the same note, I was like, how do I know that these pros aren't just jumping into servers, but they're not using their own name? There's no way.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun aliases. I even have a couple I play QC under when I'm goofing around or when I'm doing like 2v2 or when I was doing 2v2 ranked with one of my good friends, Salt and Vinegar. I played as Jalapenos.
I've run into Salt and Vinegar a couple of times in a game. It's never a pleasure. He's too good.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He has good aim.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll just talk about Quake 4 now. Like, how did you, like, what was the process of you going from, like, a kid who played with his dad to getting into this pro gaming scene?
Oh, man. So I got kind of lucky. I mean, I was a decent player, but I probably shouldn't have been sponsored to the level I was. I basically played Quake 3 Arena really early. I was still high ping and then got back into sports and all that. And didn't touch anything again until I want to say like mid 2004. One of my buddies picked up Quake 2 and was really liking it, so I showed him how to play Duel. And all of a sudden, Doom 3 was coming out around the corner, so I picked it up and actually upgraded for it and all that good stuff. My dad helped me with that at the time because I was still only like 20, struggling college kid, and I really liked the Duel in that. It had some Quake movement, but it was really different. It was slower paced, for someone who hadn't played a lot of Quake in a long time. And honestly didn't really understand the finer points of Duel. Like how to work on trades and all that stuff. It was a really simple game. They set up the maps so you could just run routes over the items, just straight over, back and forth, and they respawn right in front of you. So to break control, it was really simple and straightforward. It wasn't always easy to do, but you knew what you had to do. It was a simple Duel game. And I ended up being pretty successful online at that and playing in QuakeCon 2005 with some buddies. And I was favored to do a lot better than I did. It was my first ever real LAN experience. I didn't know what to expect and ran into a good European dueler, Slane3. Slane, I don't know how you pronounce it, but
shout out to Slane3.
Yeah, he knocked me in the losers bracket. I ended up winning a few matches. Ran into former Quake Pro at the time, Daler, and had a very close game with him. I think it came down to a couple frags, and that was it. And someone named Digismack, Tyler Morgan, shout out to him. He was QuakeCon staff, I think, a few times in the mid 2000s, helped organize the tournaments, actually did pretty well in one of them. Caught his eye, and he was working with this organization called My Game Room, and they were doing this thing called Frag Arcade, where they built custom like stat tracking and all this thing for a multitude of games. And he's like, "Yo, we want a sponsored player for Quake 4 coming up. Would you do this?" And I was like, "Oh man, sure, yeah, that sounds great." Not knowing fully what I was signing up for, and through some of the friends I made in Doom 3. I ended up having those connections that I had in Quake 4, and to meet some of the Fatality people, stay in the Fatality house for a while. Learn a lot of what I learned there, even though I was a very immature player, and eventually getting to play on tour for about 7 months, I guess, as a sponsored player.
So when I tell people, like I told Kentucky Nerd last night, I was like, "Yeah, I'm interviewing Violentheart," and he's like, he doesn't know you as well, very well, and he's like, "Well, what is he? Why are you interviewing him?" I was like, "Well, he played Quake 4 Pro," and most people's reaction is like, "There was a Quake 4 Pro scene." Like a lot of people never played Quake 4. I've never played Quake 4. I watched some videos of it last night to try to familiarize myself for this interview. But what was that? Where was it at? I know that they had coverage, but it wasn't like there's so many people that don't know.
Yeah, so it wasn't really huge. It was kind of a, I guess, missed opportunity. I love Raven Software. They built, Heretic, Hexen, those wonderful games of the past. And I was excited for them to make Quake 4, but the multiplayer just wasn't quite right initially. There were a lot of issues with the balance and all that, but they did add a really cool element. That's the crouch sliding that you can, find using Slash in Quake Champions today.
There's crouch sliding. There was the ramp jumping. What was the other thing?
Crouch sliding, ramp jumping. Man, I can't remember if there was
grappling. Was there grappling in that game?
No, not for Duel.
Okay.
It was all fast movement on crouch sliding. If you could LG lightning gun real well. But basically, I played it from. Well, I went to the Fatality House in November of 2005. Spent my Thanksgiving there. Actually, the guy that owns the house took me to his family's Thanksgiving. Street Runner, Jared, if you're hearing this, shout out to you. And I played in CPL Winter 2005, which I believe was won by Cooler. And I did terrible. My first sponsored event, I just got whomped. And the game was really like the shotgun was super strong in the beginning, and there weren't really any dual maps. So if you were really good at Quake 3 Duel and knew all the finer points that I was still trying to learn, the imbalance in the beginning, man, it was a really steep climb for new players such as myself. But I went back home after that event, spent Christmas with my family, spent a couple months there, and actually lost my rig at that time that I'd bought the previous year for Doom 3 to a huge electrical surge.
Okay. I thought you meant like misplaced a whole computer.
Like a capacitor outside ended up catching fire, and it like ruined a lot of electronics in the neighborhood for people. And I had a really giant UPS surge protector the thing was plugged into, and it didn't matter. It still killed a lot of the components. So I spent, I think, 2 weeks out of commission while my sponsor got me a new rig. And I think that was in May of 2006. I went back out to the Fatality House, spent my 21st birthday on the road playing in what was then WSVG event, because they bought all the CPL events, kind of took over the Quake and everything else. Played in a event in Louisville, Kentucky on my 21st birthday, and did a little bit better, but lost to someone I'd actually just beaten in an online qualifier by like 30 a couple weeks prior, because well, my sponsor had kind of made me a little bit nervous before the match, told me some information if I'd done well, I'd gotten like a little bit more money and all this. I was like kind of like shitting a brick, like, oh no, what do I do? And I ended up kind of just ruining the match, which was okay, because then they all felt bad for me, and we had this kind of documentary crew that was following Fatality and all those guys. Those dudes took me out to Hooters for my 21st birthday, and all the waitresses made me stand on a table while all the dudes and them saying happy birthday to me. So even though I got knocked out of the tournament pretty early, it was a great experience, very memorable, one of the most memorable things from my Quake 4 times.
I was fresh out of basic training on my 21st birthday. That was.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I can't. Not a relatable story. Like, I don't have anything that could even compare to, I'm with my heroes on the road on my 21st birthday. That's amazing, dude. So,
oh, man.
explain to. Well, go ahead. Say what you want to say. And
no,
then,
I was gonna say it was a great time. I can explain whatever you want.
What was, like, for people who may be listening to this aren't familiar? What was the process of getting into the Fatality House? Like, what was that?
Know the right people and be really lucky.
So this is, are they scouting or?
No, like basically I made friends with his name is Jared Bryson. Street Runner was his alias, and he kind of owned the house that all those dudes were playing in, and they were playing at that time in the CPL World Tour for Painkiller in 2005. And actually, initially, when I went over there to play Quake 4, they were still like wrapping that up. I think they had 2 events left, like one of the main qualifier events, and then like the final event that was televised on MTV. So they weren't playing Quake 4 with us right away, but basically I went there, I played with a bunch of the dudes that were already there, made inroads.
Anyone else of note?
Not the first time. The guys playing Painkiller, like Jonathan Wendell, Fatality was there. Old Quake legend. Oh man, I feel bad for saying this. I can't remember his name. Oh man, there was Brian Grapton, Zen. What's his name? AIM. A couple other Europeans I can't remember that were kind of in and out, because he did bring in a lot of different people, for a week, couple weeks, month, and they'd fly back out, to wherever, overseas or somewhere else in the States if they were native to here. Wombat was the other guy that was playing.
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioning him.
Yeah, I actually got to play Mario Kart with those 2 dudes, and that was crazy nuts. But they all were playing Painkiller the first time I was there. So, I went home for Christmas, all that, and there was kind of a hiatus. There weren't really any tournaments until May or June of 2006. So I went back out there in May. Everyone had kind of readjusted, and we were all playing together. And at that time, I believe Clamp OK was there, Sabian. Rafik Lost Cause was there, Fatality. I think Chance had just been there or was there after I left. Just a lot of people coming in and out that were wanting to play, along with my sponsor people and the crew following us for the documentary. It was, man, that was a full house.
So how was it dealing with all of that and traveling and sponsors? Like, were they covering your plane tickets or your driving you places?
Yeah. So I traveled with the group. They paid for my plane tickets, but it was always sort of like with the group. They paid for my food, my lodging, all that stuff, and gave me a little bit of extra cash each month. So like I was like fully sponsored. I wasn't necessarily salaried. I had expenditure money, if you will, for well, just so I can make it through the events and everything without having to work and deal with all that good stuff.
So the sponsor essentially is like, here's the amount of money we're paying you just to sponsor us, and then I'm assuming cash prizes if you won something is yours. Like you take that.
Yeah. I only won I won a good amount of hardware, like almost $5,000 and then I got third behind a couple of Czech Six players, Clock and Destruct. Clock won that event in Denver. And I got top 16 in some other smaller online event. I think I got like $120. Nothing to write home
Yeah.
about. Yeah,
It's more than
but
I've ever
it was cool. Oh man.
So playing Quake 4 and then moving to Quake Champions and now I guess you're playing Quake Live a little bit more too. How do you approach learning a game?
Well, Quake's, I mean, as most people listen to this, especially I played Quake Duel, know it's a different animal. Honestly, my Quake Live, I've played now, I think 5 light duel sessions, and I find the item timing and stuff to be pretty tricky. And I really can't say like how I approach that because I'm just falling back on like what I know from my previous experience, which I was a really immature player and basically like I was like, oh man, I run the armors and then I charge you and use my great aim power you.
It works for claws. Like
yeah, well, I ain't claws, bro. I'm a very poor man's claws. But I wouldn't even go that far because I didn't understand all the things I understand now. And basically, I mean, I watch like with Quake Live, I didn't play that at all. So a good example would be that. I watch like if I want to study a map, like I want to learn Elder, for example, I watch a lot of notable games where well, like the 2016 QuakeCon finals, for example, where there were a lot of tense moments. You know, you had to play defensively, but also very offensively in a couple of key situations to make sure the score was tied so you could go to overtime or whatever. I just kind of take notes from those. And when I try to practice, I try to recreate some of those situations, force those. So when you see them in real, you know, quote unquote, real games, then you've had a little bit of experience dealing with it, and it's not something new that's making you think or you know react a little bit slower than you would if you practiced it a bunch.
Yeah, you see a lot of that kind of thing where you see people make the same mistakes over and over again, and in pro tournaments even. Like all the way back to Quake 2, you can watch Thresh run people through that furnace trap, right? And,
yeah.
And that exists in Dusk as well. Like there's a one map where you have this meat grinder, you can switch it on, run through there really fast before the trapdoor falls, and people just get annihilated if they try to chase you. And the same thing,
cool.
Yeah, Quake Champions as well. There's no traps, but just generally speaking, you'll have people that just constantly want to jump up the jump pad in the middle of Blood Covenant. And this is, I'm just talking really low rent, new player type situation, but so how do you break habits? That's a huge problem for people.
A big thing I'd really like seeing Quake Champions that you have to, like use external software for right now is demos. Big thing back in the day, people were kind of guarded, about tactics and stuff. So you had to watch your own demos and whatnot to get a feel for what not to do. So if you walked into a room or did something where you thought a sound cue, meant it was the right time to charge, and then suddenly you're eating rockets and you're dead and you give up a string of like 10 frags. You had to watch your own demos a lot back in the day to see where things went wrong, how you were baited. And that was a lot of what I did, even when I was kind of quote unquote pro. I don't know. I was a terrible pro. We'll say that. But you just study a lot of your own, like watch your own footage and see like, okay, this is what I did good, but also this is what I did bad. And, if you keep going up jump pad and you died 14 times in the match and 11 of those were going up jump pad, I mean, you just watch your own footage and you can see that's something you need to be mindful of it, practice it, and eventually you won't even have to think about it. You can be on to the next thing you need to improve in your game.
Some people don't see their own flaws, though. They only see the parts where they did well. That they literally just Oh, what? Why, I don't know why I died right there. Like they never process that information, and it seems to me that someone like you or anyone higher tier or anything like that, you have to be the kind of person who is willing to adjust to their own mistakes and be self-critical. Like you have to have a little bit of self-loathing to be successful at Quake, I think.
Oh yeah, and it's not even on a match to match basis. In Quake Champions, it could be round to round. You could find out that, all right, I don't have my usual lightning gun today, and I'm getting fried. So let's force some long distance situations with machine gun rail, maybe some rockets. Get them somewhere else. Or if your rail's not doing well, but you got them with the lightning. Forcing mid range situations in close with rocket, so you're not have rail that day because you can't land any whatever. So it's a adjustment mid game. You have to be knowing if okay, I suck at rail today. Let's hide that
Yeah,
thing away, except for when I have to.
that's really interesting. Like just so day to day, you would based on the way that you're playing with certain weapons, you're just gonna, what, I'm not even gonna try to rail. I'm gonna try to focus on what I know I can do right now.
Yeah, I mean, the rails, like if you're hot with it, I mean that can make it hell in duel.
Right.
Just make your control reach so much further in the map if you're railing well. But if you're missing that, you're not necessarily challenging them as much when they pick up items or whatever, and their stack's bigger. You got to find another way to chip it away. So you think about what situations would be beneficial for you. Maybe you, in that first fight of the game, you out LG'd them. So, okay, you're getting out railed. Next time, force that LG fight. You got to just adjust to your opponent and your own play to have success if it's not going the way you'd like it to.
That's really cool, man. I never even considered thinking like that because in my mind, it's like no matter what you do, your aim is going to be day to day inconsistent. You could be as good as you want to
Yep.
be at it, but it's not a consistent thing. The only thing you can be really consistent about is your timing and your positioning. But it seems to me like you're playing on a level that I can't yet comprehend, and that's what I love about Quake in general is that there's just these layers of just tier after tier after tier of like these are the problems that this SR rank runs into, and I've seen it casting tournaments. Like I can actually tell at between like 1350 and 1150, there's like a huge deficit in just item timing that has almost nothing to do with anything to do with aim or anything like that. And then as you get higher and higher, it's like okay, this guy can hit you with a vertical rail midair, and this guy can't, and that's where the line is.
That's so actually kind of compare, like I can compare myself to how I was when I was on tour versus, the more mature player I am now. I'm a little bit slower because I'm an old man today. Back in the day, like I really knew how to fight and force situations where I could, use my aim, my tactics, my dodging to get an upper hand. And I didn't necessarily understand when not to always force. Whereas today, I'm a little bit more mature and understand some of those issues you just described, lower SR players, like, you know, what not to do or what not to feed into,
Right.
how to adjust a little bit better than I used to. I wish I had the knowledge I have now with the motor skills I had back then. Man, oof.
You'll also see players that get really, get to a certain level on essentially like just one thing that they're very good at. So I'll just call out Night Owl right now. He's like the duelingest dueler out there as far as I'm concerned at my level, like, or honestly above now. He's just constantly grinding and moving up and up and up and up. And he is so fucking good at hitting rockets. Like it's ridiculous.
Oh,
He's got the timing of it because he's never played any other Quake. This game's rockets, he's dialed in, and I even saw him hit you with some pretty sick shit last night.
dude, it was crazy. Like not playing the game and
Yeah,
I mean, but 3 times in a couple months now, duel and all that, because I've had other things going on. Um, the little opportunities I had where I was like, yeah, I can plus forward here. I got him, dude.
yeah.
I hit a rocket dang near every time, or got juggled by one, or had to dodge one. There was one time he would have hit me with a long distance rocket on, I think it was Blood Covenant, and I literally I jumped it and I had 4 health, it would just splattered me everywhere, and it would have won him the round. And I ended up coming back and winning the round. But that one rocket, oh man.
That's a huge thing for a player like him, though, is that he has this one tool that he's super good at. And I've only beat him maybe 3 times ever, and we've dueled hundreds of times against each other. And every time it's like I denied him the rocket gun. That's pretty much the best way I know how to get to him. And he's very adaptive. Like he's super open to learning. But you'll see memes on Cathala's Key where Space likes to go to his Twitch channel and watch him lose and see his because he's a stone cold, like, I live in Canada, it's freezing here, I don't ever change my facial expression. And then he just gets so upset when he's like it's not going his way. It's the most beautiful thing in the world with his ridiculous chest hair hanging out. It's open collar shirts. I'm just gonna mess with him. I hope he listens to this.
That's great. I watched a little bit of his stream, but I didn't catch any of that. I'll have to go back, check out the chest hair.
Yeah. He's great. I love that guy. Anything else that you wanted to cover as far as learning a game, like tips that you have?
Well, as far as duel goes, if you get really good at one thing, like just like rockets, for example, you're good at that. Maybe challenge yourself to go out of your comfort zone and do things like, okay, if you suck at LG, make that a point of emphasis, go out in some free-for-alls, just work on it really hard, or work on that rail really hard, whatever is giving you a hard time, and try to instill some self-confidence so you have more than just one tool, for fights. I'm not saying this to just Night Owl, because he hit me with some crazy rails last night too, but anyone in general, like if you feel like you're really good with one thing, you'll be satisfied with that. Pick up the next thing and the next thing, and once you feel like you mastered it enough to your liking, the next area in your game you want to improve, move on to it. Quake's got such a high skill ceiling, you can never stop improving. So just pick something and run with it.
Something I struggled with in Quake Champions particularly was the railgun. Like, for me, the longest time, anyone who was dueling me, they knew, like, he's not going to hit a rail. Don't even worry about the rail. Don't deny the rail. It's never going to happen. And then I just made that a focus of mine. Like, I had played in a couple of, like, State of Quake tournaments. Shout out to Slip and UNKiND.
Bearded Slip.
So the first time I played, they're like, hey, you did well, but you suck at item timing, so go fix that. So I took like a week, and I just like, I fixed it. I just like, I don't have a problem with item timing anymore. And then the next week is like, okay, I played Tumnus, and Tumnus also sucks at item timing. Hey, Tumnus. But his aim is ridiculous. Like, he's just, like, he almost didn't get an item in the whole game. This is DM6. And he's just able to outrail the shit out of me the whole time. And he's just nuking me with aim. And he ended up winning in the 5th round. And so I had to just come to Jesus moment. It's like, I need to figure out how to make people respect my rail. And I don't know what it was. I experimented with everything. I literally went through a list of like every pro's settings and just day by day, like copied them, tried to learn something from what they do. I think I settled on like a hybrid of like where I had already been comfortable and Claws and Kilson, because they do use mouse excel and I don't like a lot of it, but I use
do too.
0.01. Like, that's fine for me. And for whatever reason, now I feel super confident hitting maybe 30% rails in a match.
Nice. Yeah. I use mouse excel also, and that was at the insistence of Jonathan Wendell, Mr. Fatality. I was a high sense player when I first entered that Fatality house, and he was like, yo, you can still have all your really snappy whips and stuff, but you can have better LG if you lower your base sense and work with Excel. And man, that was one of the biggest tips I'd ever gotten, because, it allowed me to kind of keep my exact same feel for those whip rails, whip rockets and all that. But the LG, it was just so much lower sense. It was way easier to use, just melted like butter. So
when you aim, particularly like a railgun or any hit scan weapon, do you try to just keep your cursor on them, or are you more of a dot, like know when the dot is on the target? I've seen a lot of different philosophies on this. Some people think you just put it on there and shoot, like Star Centurion's that guy. But some people think
that's how I am with the rail. Put it on there and shoot. Same with rocket. I mean, not rocket, shotgun. Rocket's a little bit different because obviously, you're aiming for the splash and a lot of prediction depending on the distance. But LG, I don't even like a lot of people use their dodging or whatever to aim their LG, and I'm not like that. I just, man, I'm trying, pardon my language, but I'm trying like fuck to aim that crosshair on you the whole time I'm LG.
Yeah.
And
I find that easy. Like I'm a 800 DPI, like 1.325. Like I'm totally comfortable with like the really tight aiming. It's the big whips that I had always struggled with. And
Yep,
I've always had this issue where like I don't really, like you said, you point and click with the railgun. I wait until you walk through that crosshair, typically. Or I'll move side to side and try to like just know when you're gonna walk through my crosshair and hit it then.
well, sometimes, I mean, I guess sometimes I still do that. For shots you want to be sure that you're hitting versus shots that have to get out a little bit quicker. Sometimes you can't wait for that strafe to line
Right.
up. You got to actually aim it. But yes, I mean, if you watch a lot of pros, I mean, even some of them that have like the best whips and stuff, every now and then, if they're trying to hit a really easy rail, sometimes it'll be a strafe and combination of mouse rail, just so it's easy. But I'm fully of the camp that you shouldn't LG and strafe your aim, shouldn't MG and strafe your aim. You should always be able to manipulate your hand or wrist, depending on if you're high sense, low sense, claw, or whatever style grip, just so your opponent can't do it back to you. They can't move and aim with you.
It's true. I have basically two more topics to cover. The first
Sure.
one, yeah. The first one is so you manage Ultraviolence on Discord, right? And when I first got into this game, I really didn't understand the social aspect of like how to find other players. And I went and I searched, I think it was like the Quake Reddit or Quake North America posted your server in there, and I found it and I joined it, and then I was so overwhelmed by food porn that I exited out, moved on with my life. And then later on met you and came back around to it. How did that start? Like what was your philosophy on managing a community?
I got back into Quake Champions. It was same kind of thing. I didn't know how to find people, what to do. I got on the Facebook group, ended up meeting like one dude, talked to him, and he's like, "Yo, get on Discord." And from there, I created Ultraviolence, which was actually a private server with like 3 people to start.
Yeah.
And it became like 10 people and, 20, 50 onto that. And we held, I'm going to say InstaGib, even though all you guys say it's InstaGib. People say it's InstaGib.
GIF, GIF. Yeah.
English, please, InstaGib. And we actually we had some cash prizes from some of our like original members donated, myself being one of them. We got a lot of in-game stuff from Tokyo, a ton of stuff. In fact, he kind of chided me for how much I asked for, but then he gave it all to me. So props on the community managers for hooking me up. But once we advertised that, and we were trying to keep it kind of small, so it wasn't this huge, massive 2-day thing, it just blew up to like suddenly we had a 200-person server, and I had to work with my buddies that were there originally to figure out, okay, we need bots that can handle, roles and pick up games, so on and so forth, so we can actually manage this large community that is suddenly on our hands.
That's what we're going through right now, essentially.
Yep.
Cathala's Keep
blew up.
I don't want to like just give away all our plans and everything, but I really see a lot of new traffic happening soon, and especially because we're focusing on, or I see, some people just focus on one game, and with the state of Quake Champions right now, which is the last topic I want to cover with you, we'll get to that. But I really don't want to just focus on like one game and let it ruin everything for everybody if it doesn't work out. What is like what for in your experience, having seen multiple iterations of Quake come and go? Go ahead and just lay it on us. I've heard this rant 100 times, but I feel like you have the best, most articulate idea of how this is either gonna go down or the different ways that it could go down.
Well, so I got 2 things to say about that. Actually, kind of ties our last Discord topic to this. My Discord was ultimately Quake Champions only, aside from food porn and memes and that type of thing. And we're having to kind of grow. We're actually going to undergo some changes to help reorganize, restructure ours, just because of the current state of QC, which I believe could go one of 2 ways. it's obvious I want the game to thrive and do well and have
We all
tournaments
do.
and all that. Yeah, like I'm super pushing for that. Um, it could be that they're like kind of winding it down, which I'm not hoping for, doing what they're doing with Quake Live, getting support, taking care of all the bugs, all the things that prevent people from launching the game, and eventually getting to the path of releasing the binaries. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping they do what they did with Quake 4, which happened while I was on tour, and then they released all their fixes like after I decided, oh man, I'm not cut out for this. Basically, Raven made the Quake 4 multiplayer a lot like Quake 3, but there were some engine issues. It was a lot like
Right.
Quake Doom 3, and there were a handful of tournaments that were held with like community maps, the TMP maps. And my last event, which was WSVG Summer 2006, was in July, over the 4th of July weekend. They took a lot of the pros, myself included, behind closed doors and like, hey, this is what we've been working on for a few months since we took over from Raven, much like they've just taken over from Saber. And they showed us like the core gameplay was a little bit better. It was faster. They made a lot of tweaks. There were a lot of performance enhancements. You could have like a dual tourney where you were on a server with 8 people, and you could have a bracket all on the same server where you guys played through it and saw who was the winner of your little 8-person friendly group. There were a lot of cool enhancements that they made after taking over from Raven, and I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that's the route that Quake Champions is going right now. It seemed like they're taking a step back from having to push out the frenzied releases each month, with me being a software engineer and being the only software engineer supporting a large business right now.
Right.
I can understand that having to do a release each month might be tough on their small team. So taking a step back and all the fixes that they're making, performance enhancements, they say is game breaking bugs, stuff like that. I believe they're on that path that they were with Quake 4, and it ultimately made Quake 4 like a lot more fun to play, brought a lot of players back to it, and the pro scene only lasted like another 6 months after that, but people continued to play the game for quite a while because fixes were so robust. And man, it was Quake again with crouch sliding, this new mechanic. It was fun.
Joe Rogan's playing Quake 4 right now with Ryan Redman.
Yeah.
Like, that's good news. And I think that his audience is going to bring in. There's so many people that just do everything he says, me included sometimes. It's like, if he likes something, I'll probably just give it a try. So I think we're going to see some influx with that into Quake. I hope, especially after this March patch, if they do it correctly.
Yeah, that's really my hope. I remember a quote from Sync Error. I'm thinking it was in November or December. It might have even been just before CTF came out, saying that he hoped by summer or whatever, which I think he was meaning like QuakeCon, perhaps timing, that he wanted CTF to be the competitive mode. Well, that would mean some maps, a bunch of fixes, some tweaks, and all that stuff. So if that's their goal, and they're really setting out to kind of get Quake in front of a big audience again over the summer, I think we're going to see a lot of good stuff for the game.
Yeah.
I mean, fingers crossed. We get a great patch in March. A lot of people that aren't able to run the game right now are able to come back and join us again, and things just kind of hit the ground rolling and sort of snowball from there. I'm hoping.
So do you think id is going to take over development?
If they haven't already, I'm really hopeful they do. And if they haven't already, I'm guessing that it's maybe because it's not their technology. They don't know all the finesse behind the code that Saber wrote, so they may be still sorting a lot of that out. I know that the patch in December had a lot of issues for other players. Personally, for me, the game ran a lot better. Even though on my rig I had no performance issues anyways, it was notably better. But for others, they ran into some problems. I think that maybe from it kind of stepping in and like, oh, we found all these issues, but then not going some of the finesse because they haven't had enough time with it yet. So I think a little more time. Maybe they will take over the whole thing. Maybe they won't. But them being involved can't be bad at all. It's only going to get better.
All right. I don't really have anything else for you, man. I really appreciate you doing this.
Hey, dude, this has only been my 3rd ever Quake interview. I did one when I was pro, once before all that. So, dude, thanks for having me. This was a blast. I'm very, very humbled that you thought I'm worth your time to talk to and broadcast to other folks, brother.
Yeah. Well, this is it doesn't have to be over. Like I just want to go ahead and tout off. Like you can check out articles from us, me and Kentucky Nerd over at QuakeFans.net. On that note, you did write a little bit after your pro scene. You want to talk about that before we go?
Yeah, actually, so my sponsor, My Game Room, they were based in Curaçao, the Netherlands Antilles, Dutch island, and they started a thing called Gaming Junkie. That was an online sort of esports gaming Quake website that we all wrote for. I helped build the website. I think it was WordPress based for a little bit, and it gained a lot of success in short time because we formatted our articles a little bit differently, had a different creative style for each piece. It was really cool. And from that born what was called Pro Gamer, and the E in Gamer was the 3 Pro Gamer magazine, totally for esports and all that. And their introductory issue came out in, in QuakeCon 2007. It came out, had a cool little cutout with the Quake logo on the cover. It was cool stuff. But basically, I was able to write for them, their website, Gaming Junkie, for a long time, based on my limited success playing Quake and gaining recognition there and my experiences with all that. And eventually was able to parlay that into writing for a magazine for, I think, 2 issues for a few months. Helped get the initial thing out the door before I moved on to a local software engineering job and kind of never looked back in that field. But man, it was a great time getting to fly out there.
I miss the days of magazines. I still read like Retro Gamer magazine and stuff like that. Websites could be overwhelming. I really get that with people. If you just have this long feed of like, people want to be spoon fed sometimes, I think. And that's something we've lost in this era. Yeah. Jesus. Man, you've had a fucking crazy ass life so far. What else do you have? Like, what else are you gonna do? I don't understand.
Oh man, I don't know. You know, I don't necessarily know if this is for the interview, but I have an automotive, so this is like my last chance to really actually be competitive at like a arena FPS or whatever. I can tell that I'm slowing down a lot, so I'm really hopeful that Quake Champions turns around, or you know, we get some other fun arena game that we can all play and have a blast with. But I just, you know, I'm just along for the ride, having a good time, and I'm really enjoying folks like yourself and the friends I've met playing Quake, because that's what will endure and what will last ultimately through the years.
Yeah. The last few plugs are basically like Cathalis Keep. We're working on creating a more competitive scene for not just Quake Champions, but all arena first-person shooters, because I want synergy. I want to see everyone succeed. I don't want to see this community go away. This is the primavera of cool people, as far as I'm concerned. You can't touch this.
Yeah, you got to be a special type to play arena shooters. I really dig them, and what you guys have done with the Keep, Cathalis Keep, you've set it up for a lot of growth, a lot of different games. It's a really fun place. It's actually totally different than my Ultraviolence Discord. I totally dig how you guys are setting it up, and how you guys take input and, you know, listen to the players, make it really fun, have dual pool nights. Like your Discord's blast, man. So definitely shout out to you guys. Only other thing I want to say, really shout out to my dudes, not necessarily like come to my Discord server, but guys that have been there from the beginning and have supported me, along with my girlfriend, who is the biggest supporter and pusher. Like she's the reason I was even playing Quake Champions Duel to begin with. I suffered an injury playing sports and kind of was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be stuck sitting for a year. What can I do? And Quake Champions was coming out of beta. She really urged me to, you know, since I got injured playing sports and lost that competitive edge of my life, outlet in my life, to play Quake Champions competitively, you know, amateur. And that was what I did. But all those guys, the Ultraviolence server, Dubrook, Boom, Bella, X24, Everthus, and my main man, Salt and Vinegar, who's just grinded out a ton of duels with me. And I know not all of them were that fun for you, buddy. But you guys have been awesome. I appreciate all the support and love. you guys make this all worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, the last thing is that you told me that your girlfriend was like making flashcards for you for spawn sets. So your story, it's to sum it up from the very beginning of this interview to the end, is that you've had a lot of really good people in your life supporting you through this. Like your dad started off being super supportive, and all the way to this point, man. You have this girl who's like just supporting you, pushing you to try to be competitive and all that kind of stuff. My wife's amazing too. She's a great cook. She's super cool, super supportive, but she's never made me flashcards. So I may have to talk to her about that.
Oh man, she makes me starting spawn point flashcards and then quizzes me on them. She steals my store lag hoodie that I'm wearing right now. She steals my Quake Champions hoodie I have. She's just the best, man. And I actually have a bit of a unique setup. I'm trying to figure out a way around it when I'm streaming, because I duplicate my monitor onto our main living room TV, our 70-inch, and I also have sounds that aren't like, I have my sounds being played through my headphones so I can hear them, obviously, but then I have them also being output through a pair of speakers in our living room so she can hear and see what's going on. And she's a huge part of my tournament. So, like when something goes into sudden death, she's just sitting there on the couch, like gripping the pillow, like, oh man, it's so tense. So she's been great, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this without her, for sure.
That's amazing, dude. I just, again, thank you for coming out. Thanks for talking to me. I like your Sorlag shirt or hoodie or whatever that is. Godzilla.
Sorbet, spitting, see, spitting.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Peace, everybody.
Brother.